For the past 2 months, I've been working on my first full-size RPG, inspired by games like Skyrim and Terraria. It's focused around archaeology and exploration, with a few social elements similar to Stardew Valley. Hi, my name is Jordan and I'm an indie game developer. Welcome to my first devlog on my new game, The Song of Veridia. I've made this video to show off how the development has been going and what I managed to get done so far. I got the idea for this game about 2 years ago when I was playing Terraria and exploring the underground desert. I thought to myself, hey, this is pretty fun. Wouldn't it be cool to have an entire game focused on just exploring like this? Which wasn't exactly an original concept, as many games like that already existed, including Terraria. However, the idea stuck in my mind, and as the years passed, I've been refining and polishing it. In November, I finally decided to make this idea into a reality, and so began the journey of making my dream game. The game is set on a mysterious island called Veridia, split into multiple diverse biomes and locations to explore. The gameplay is centered around exploring different dungeons, caves, forests, and other locations to find all sorts of interesting things like unique weapons or artifacts. You would then use these items to fight bosses or complete quests for characters that you meet along the way. I plan to add a few cozy side activities as well, so you can take a break from all the fighting and maybe go fishing or spend some time with a character that you really like. I started out in November by drawing the player and a bit of the environment. I went for a sort of medieval vibe for the outfit, but I still tried to keep it a little ambiguous so that you could make up your own backstory without much limitation. At first, the player had a slightly different canvas size and general look. He didn't really spark your attention all that much when he was on screen, and I felt he deserved a lot more detail, so I ended up redrawing the sprite in a more detailed style, inspired by some older RPGs. Overall, I was a lot prouder of this one, and he actually ended up being very influential to the game's art style later on. The environment was made using a dual-grid tile map system, which basically allows me to place tiles in my world in a much more precise manner. It's automated and lets me easily and quickly draw the world. I also don't have to draw as many individual tiles as I would have otherwise needed to. If you're interested in learning more about it, you can check out this video by Jess Codes. It's really informative and well made, and it helped me out a ton when I was setting it up. Huge thanks to her for this system, as well as her texture overlay shader, which I used for my tile sets as well. Let's take a look at the game's audio. I decided to use an audio engine instead of the default Godot audio system. I ended up choosing Fmod. The reason for this is that an audio engine generally makes audio work a lot smoother, but more importantly, you can mix audio and add different filters onto it based on what's currently happening in your game. For example, I've used the engine to give my character different footstep sounds based on what he's currently walking on. I've made these little runways, each of them had an assigned material, which would determine the kind of sound that played when the player walked on it. Each material has an ID, which has its assigned footstep sounds. When the player walks on any tile, the game checks the tile's surface ID and then plays its corresponding sound. For now, there's 3 types of footstep sounds: wooden surfaces, harder surfaces like rocks or tiles, and ground surfaces like dirt and grass. This is what they sound like. Please keep in mind that all of these sounds are currently just placeholders, and I will change them many times throughout development. The next month came by, and with it some new features and art. My first challenge to tackle was an inventory system. It took a lot of trial and error. At first it barely worked at all, but after about 2 weeks of tinkering, I finally got it working. I managed to make an easily expandable system with item stacking, dropping items, moving them around, and transferring them to chests. There's also a hotbar with just basic functionality for now. Next month I'll try to get it working a bit more properly. After finishing the whole system, I drew sprites for all of the different items and one for the chest. While I was proud of how the inventory system turned out, it still felt like it was missing something. The whole experience felt really confusing and unintuitive. So, I decided to expand the system with tooltips. Now, whenever you hover over an item, you get a short description of it. With the inventory system finished, I wanted to take a break from the more complex things, and so I started to work more on the environment. I really wanted the forest area to feel special. There's this little forest close to my home, and it always really inspired me. There's something about the cold crisp air and the solitude of it that just makes it so beautiful. Even though I've walked through it 1,000 times, it always feels new and exciting to explore. I was trying to emulate this atmosphere we're making the environment, and I hope I succeeded. When I placed the new art into the level, I noticed how the world doesn't really feel alive. To make the environment more dynamic and impactful, I've made it so that when you walk through grass, you actually move it aside a little bit. It's a small detail, but I feel it adds so much to the actual experience. The way I've implemented this is actually pretty simple. Basically, the grass has a simple shader in it, which controls how skewed it is. Then, via script, the grass uses its trigger to check if the player is walking through it. We then take the direction in which the player is walking and sway the grass in that direction. Using a tween, we can smoothly animate the grass sway directly via script. Another thing I've noticed is that whenever you walk behind a tree, you can't really see what you're doing. I fixed this by making it turn transparent whenever you walk behind it. The way it works is that the tree has a trigger behind its top part, which checks if the player has walked behind it. If they have, the tree's opacity gets reduced to half. Once the player leaves, the opacity returns back to normal. The trigger script actually only plays an animation. All of the transparency logic is handled within the animations themselves. As a result, we get this nice fade whenever we walk behind a tree. And that's all I've done for now. Next devlog, I'm going to try to add something to actually do in the game. I'll also try to add some more variation to the environment and squash a few bugs. I was going for a bit of a different format in this video. I wanted to explain the process a bit more and show you guys how some of the things actually work. Let me know in the comments below what you think. I'd love to hear any suggestions and feedback that you have. With that out of the way, I want to thank you so much for watching this video until the end. If you enjoyed watching, remember to click on all the buttons below, and I'll see you next time.